Well, I'm back from, I spent the weekend in Fredericksburg, and I would say I need to go back in a couple of weeks for the actual, when the fungus starts to grow from the cow poop. It's got to be around Easter-ish. Anyway, after a nice rain, when it gets around 85 degrees, we'll go there about 4 in the morning with some flashlights, and we'll get some tea. We'll get some leaves for the tea. That was what I was talking about. I was out in Fredericksburg because it was an important time to be out there to present Rusty T's Mueller report conclusions. I had to get out of Austin and drive through. It was a very nice drive. There were blue bonnets and Indian paintbrushes everywhere along the entire drive. One of the most beautiful drives in the entire world. It was a sensory overload the entire way. And then we got there. Now, we're going to go back for the ultimate heroic dose of Rusty Tea, which will be later. But, meanwhile, this was while the Mueller report dropped unceremoniously into the lap of Attorney General William Pelham Barr, the guy who thinks pardons are poker chips to play around with. Yeah, that guy. In 2016... William Pelham Barr went out on a big expensive limb and donated $55,000 to the campaign. The presidential 2016 campaign, $55,000 of all of the money William Barr had accrued somehow, whatever he does, he donated to Jeb, apostrophe Jeb, 2016 member. That William Barr gave $55,000 of his own earned money to Jeb Bush's campaign in 2016. This is the guy. This is the guy. This is the guy. Okay, who is now the all-knowing overseer of the Mueller report, an arbiter of what we, the taxpayers, who paid for the investigation, although we made a tidy profit off of Manafort's millions of holdings alone. But this guy, it is in William Barr's hands now. The man who gave $55K to Jeb 2016 and said a bunch of things about individual one. He is now the one guy. He was trying to keep individual one from winning the primary. William Barr, Jeb. He is the one guy who decides what we see, if and when, or even at all. He was supposed to have recused himself from this particular job here, if y'all remember, I'm sure, because of his 19 pages, William Barr, of unsolicited comments that this is a witch hunt, etc., blah, 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 unsolicited before his pick as Attorney General. Now, he is the guy who is what George W. called the great decider. William Barr, $55,000 to Jeb to overthrow Trump's presidency, is the great decider. And this was all set up in advance. On the other side, we have Mueller, who has one of the most impressive careers of service in the United States I've ever seen. Yes, Robert S. Mueller. Let me Google that. Robert Swan Mueller. Swan? Did I show you my gun? I shot. This is the fake version. This is one you can buy for like $80. This ain't real at all. You can point it at your head or whatever. Yeah, that's the fake one. You can point it at your head. But I shot that gun out in Fredericksburg yesterday, and I also, I will talk about later how I saw some of the actual Mueller report appeared in Fredericksburg. The aliens did not appear. That's a couple weeks off. On the other side, we have Mueller. Robert Swan Mueller, really. Robert Swan Mueller. His middle name is Swan. Come out to play, warriors. Come out to play, Swan. Man, that is like jujitsu to the fucking third eye, this guy. He is married to Ann Cabell Standish. Robert Mueller is married to Ann Cabell Standish since 1966, so she's like a pilgrim lady. He is a longtime member of the Republican Party. Robert Mueller, graduate of Princeton and New York University, Marine Corps, Vietnam War, receiving a Bronze Star for heroism and a Purple Heart in July 1968. Robert Mueller was sent to South Vietnam, where he served as a rifle platoon leader with 2nd Platoon H Company, teaching them riflery. 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division on December 11, 1968. During an engagement in Operation Scotland II in Vietnam, Mueller earned the Bronze Star with V, device for combat valor, for rescuing a wounded Marine under enemy fire during an ambush in which he saw half of his platoon become casualties. He ran out and grabbed one of his and brought him in under fire. In April 1969, he received the Bronze Star for that. Then in April 1969, received an enemy gunshot wound in the thigh, recovered and returned to lead his platoon until June 1969. For his service in and during the Vietnam War, his military decorations and awards include the Bronze Star Medal with Combat V, Purple Heart Medal, 2 Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals with Combat B, Combat Action Ribbon, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 4 service stars, Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross, Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal, and Parachutist Badge. That is the other side, Robert Mueller versus Barr, who gave $55,000 to Jeb. After recuperating at a field hospital near Day Hong, Mueller became aide-de-camp to 3rd Marine Division's commanding general, then Major General William K. Jones, where he, quote, significantly contributed to the rapport Jones had with other officers. According to one report, Mueller had originally considered making the Marines his career, but explained later that, this is all from Wikipedia, that he found non-combat life in the Corps to be unexciting. Reflecting on his service in the Vietnam War, Robert Mueller said, I consider myself exceptionally lucky to have made it out of Vietnam. There were many who did not. And perhaps because I did survive Vietnam, I have always felt compelled to contribute, said Robert Mueller, quoted in his youth. He was an attorney for the Department of Justice his whole life. He gives his life to seeking justice for this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Robert Mueller. I could go on and on and on, but Lieutenant Robert Mueller, Marine, is an honorable man, director of the FBI. Talk about a man born to the position. Beto, our nation is greater for his service and has only stood as long as it has because he and his ilk, versus Bill Barr, who donated $55,000 of his money to Jeb Bush in 2016 to get rid of Trump because he didn't like him. Mull that over in your brain for a while. Let it stew. Stew, we all love Stu. First there was Madonna, then Sting, but before that we had Stu, Mitch McConnell's assistant, who just quit. But I digress. We are all in a new, larger war here, which we thought had ended in WW2, but indeed it has transmogrified into what we see today before our very eyes. through greed, power, and corruption into a twisted version of a corrupted white nationalist movement pyramid scheme that challenges people to free speech with their fascist, fear-centric hatred that was a big, giant Hitler dick bent on taking over the world with Nazis, and we definitively destroyed them and his ilk. But now Fox News is all in on this Nazi stuff and the President of the United States again. And okay, this brings us to the official Rusty Shackelford Mueller report conclusions. Robert Mueller has accomplished a few things here along the way in this investigation. To quote, this was his specific purview. People determine if the Trump campaign colluded or conspired with the Russians in their efforts to influence the ultimate outcome of the 2016 United States presidential election in an attempt to overthrow the concept of democracy itself. Attorney General of the United States William Barr has produced what is, in Rusty T's opinion, a pre-written cover-up obstruction of justice 4-page document dismissing the true import of the Mueller report and the actual attack on the United States on behalf of individual one by the Kremlin itself to destroy American democracy. Where's that part, Barr? Mueller report conclusions in a nutshell. Here it is. Paul Manafort convicted and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Manafort associate Konstantin Kilimnik has been indicted. Rick Gates admitted to committing crimes with Manafort and is awaiting sentencing. Alex van der Zwaan, son-in-law of the Russian oligarch, pleaded guilty to false statements, served 30 days in prison. George Papadopoulos, Trump campaign advisor, also lied and served 14 days in prison for perjury. Former NSA advisor Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying about meeting with Russia's ambassador. He will be sentenced at a later date. Roger Stone, longtime Trump advisor, indicted for making false statements and witness tampering. Trial in November. Identity thief Richard Pinedo pled guilty to selling fake IDs to the Russians in the Mueller report. More than 24 Russian hackers and security agents indicted for hacking into the Democratic Party headquarters. The Mueller report. The Trump campaign was absolved of colluding or conspiring, this is important, with the Russian interference to throw the United States presidential election of 2016. I will repeat that. The Trump campaign was absolved of colluding or conspiring with the Russian interference to throw the United States presidential election of 2016. They did not conspire with the Russians to overthrow the election. The evidence is clear that the Russians were able to, with all probability, sway the results of the 2016 presidential election for their chosen candidate, Donald Trump. The question of whether the POTUS obstructed justice was left for Congress to decide. But, and it's a big but, Attorney General Bill Barr overstepped his privilege and in his conclusion made an assessment that individual one will not be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. However, this is not for Bill Barr to decide. This is simply part of Bill Barr's original plan to write a 19-page memo trashing the Mueller investigation, thereby landing him the job of Attorney General, where he is now covering up for the POTUS. Therefore, Attorney General Bill Barr is now himself guilty, and I charge him, Rusty T. Shackelford, of openly and publicly obstruction of justice. Yes, the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, is obstructing justice. Oh, the sweet irony. Barr will appear before Congress to address this and other issues on April 9th. Yes. Patience, my friends. That is what is happening. In addition to the 4-page Barr conclusion of the Mueller report, which I reiterate is borderline illegal in and of itself and guilty of obstruction in and of itself. Barr's conclusion. He will go to jail for that. In addition, the question of whether individual one is a willing or unwitting The question in part of whether individual one is a willing or unwitting Russian agent remains open. Aha! I also read some of the actual Mueller report this weekend in Fredericksburg. This was secretly obtained from a Dallas company who had $65 million stolen by a Russian bank takeover in Bulgaria. They had invested the money in Bulgar Tobacco, the Russian-owned Bulgarian cigarette maker who supplies cigarettes to the entire Middle East. The interesting paragraph, and I'm getting this from my friend Kevin Booth, thank you. His new documentary is coming out, Shadows of Sophia, and you will learn how the Russians take over countries and turn them into the Kremlin's way, and how they're fixing to do it to the United States, but they have done it to Bulgaria. And the interesting paragraph being that Bulgar Tobacco has an account with ISIS. They provide cigarettes to ISIS. And, we have some Mueller report paperwork on that. Individual one just announced again that ISIS is 100% wiped out. But why is it that Bulgar Tobacco is still, even as I speak, shipping cigarettes to ISIS? We will have more later.